I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. CAVIL'S, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. CAVIL'S with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is out on assignment. I'm here with Charles Bishop, and we'll have AD Drew joining us as well. So I want to say welcome to episode 627 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We'll focus a little bit on that NCAA Division II and NAIA as things are closing up and preparing for the tournament. Starting off with at the NCAA Division II level, CAVIL'S. We'll give you a chance to talk a little bit about that. NAIA tournaments around the corner too. They start early. So we'll get to talk about that going into the Red River Athletic Conference, obviously Sooner Athletic Conference, and the HBCU AC, as those things are upon us. With that being said, we share the insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. Short, we just like to call it HBCU sports pedagogy. I'm your host again, Dr. Kenyatta. My co-host today, none other than Charles Bishop, as we team up. Your idea. This is the last one. On the Women's Thursday. I thought it was a great idea when you brought it up, and we're making it happen. We have none other than Professor Drew, AD Drew, as he continues to put in the work at the SIAD level for Morehouse. With that being said, we're filming from our home studios, sending live to K-Sway's 1230 AM studios. Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home at Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. As the Ocean of Soul comes to get us ready to get started. Yeah. Dancers are out there on the floor, and game time. As we get into this, I'm going to go to you, Charles. Obviously, Texas Southern women have lost 2 straight tough road games in Louisiana. Southern, you certainly could expect that, maybe not so much from Grambling. But if there's a such thing as teams that you may want to get back in winning ways, this series against Conduct and Dallas should be that. That's why you play the game.
That's why you play the game, exactly. And Coach Skeet talked about getting back to their winning ways, and maybe they got a little complacent last weekend. It came back to bite them, but you got UNTV and Mississippi Valley coming in this weekend. Huge opportunity for Texas Southern to kind of get back in the groove.
That being said, Drew, how are you doing today?
You know something? I'm going to be honest with you, Dr. CAVIL'S. Number one, it must be live and lit up in your arena there, because I could barely hear y'all over the band. The band is crunk in there, and it just reminds me of the atmosphere that I saw this past weekend out in Oakland, California. Obviously, everybody knows I was part of the Morehouse contingent that went out to Oakland, California. Dr. CAVIL'S, Charles, I don't know if I've told you this, but I've told a lot of people. I've been around HBCU basketball for almost 30 years, probably maybe over 30 years. I have never experienced an atmosphere like I experienced in Oakland, California for a basketball game. Definitely number one on my basketball experience list for HBCUs. And there are many of HBCU football games that I have been to, including classics, that could not touch what I experienced in California this weekend.
I'm really glad that you showcased that as part of the news of the day, because it's a great point. And it's fascinating when you talk about all the concerns that people have supposedly with the NBA. I think some other things on the table, but it is what it is. And there are some questions you can have about the format, but all that. One thing it doesn't seem that you can argue about. The NBA knows how to put on an event, and they showcase these teams, and we've seen great crowds for them, a lot of atmosphere, and it's gotten better each year, showcasing it seems based on what Drew experienced as one of the best ever. So kudos to the NBA in terms of putting this together for the HBCU basketball classic, and I hope it extends. Obviously, what's interesting to me, this is the 4 of the 5, what people recognize from the NCAA, the 4 major HBCU conference, SWAC, MEAC, SIAC, and CIAA. They've made that round. They've done the 4. Obviously, NA-wise, you can do HBCU AC to get a matchup, and certainly would love to see them decide to do that. But if not, more importantly, that they keep it going. So that's my next question. Drew, did you hear anything about it continuing? Or
well, if they go back with continue with the cycle, I believe the MEAC would be next up because I believe it started with MEAC. If they
just stay with the 4. MEAC was the first one to do it up. Correct. Or maybe they decide now to do a MEAC SWAC matchup.
Yeah, yes.
That's it. From the standpoint, it's easier moving a conference game versus trying to find time to square it up. Obviously, I'm sure the conferences would work it into the schedule because there's some natural benefits there, but that's intriguing there.
Yeah, and I will say this, and you talk about the schedule, Dr. Cavill. The fact that these 2 teams were originally scheduled to play in December when the conference matrix came out, and obviously because of the NBA getting this game, the game had moved in February. The scheduling creativity is the word I am going to use. Some may call it a nightmare that not only Morehouse but Tuskegee also had to deal with revolving around this game. Took a lot of cooperations, a lot of long Zoom calls and other phone calls, and some of them weren't pleasant, and nobody got everything that they wanted when it came to moving games, because you have to think about it. During this time of the season, that's a normal Saturday, Monday swing for both of these teams. So obviously we played each other on that Saturday, and because we traveled on that Monday game also had to be rescheduled. So there was a lot going on with that. I pulled up some ratings, Dr. Cavill, and let's see. The ratings for that game on True TV was 50. There were 58,000 people who watched that game on True TV. So that's not bad to go along with the record crowd of just shy of 11,000 for that particular game out there in
it looked it.
So what you're saying is there's an appetite for HBCU sports on the West Coast.
Not only is there an appetite for HBCU sports on the West Coast, but apparently there's an appetite for Division II sports on the West Coast. But seriously, Charles, Dr. Cavill, when you think about it, I don't care what list you go with, what order you put them in. When you talk about the top 5 most recognizable HBCU brands out there, 2 of them just happen to be playing in that game. You Morehouse, Tuskegee, Howard, Morehouse, Tuskegee, Howard are definitely 3. Spelman is up in there. So I don't care what order you put them in. You can kind of play with them after that. You may want to put a FAMU in there for number 5. You may want to put a Jackson State in for 5, Grambling for 5. But I guarantee you 3 of your top 5 are Morehouse, Tuskegee, and Howard, however you rank them.
Be a good research question to ask the public, and I bet you in a lot of ways it's going to be regional based, and in some times it will be also economic status as well in terms of how people see those brands. But it would be interesting to get some data to support that. I certainly would say top 10 without a question. Top 5 is intrigued to see if that would be the case in terms of study. Then I'm gonna go to you, Charles. What's interesting on your mind when we look at the news of the week?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we kind of have to start things off on a somber note. In the Southern University football community is mourning the death of Coach Sean Wallace after a bout with pancreatic cancer. The school announced today he was 52, and this is a statement from his sister. It is with sadness in my heart, my family, and my friends to let you know that my brother, Mr. Sean Wallace, has passed. And that was from his sister, Antoinette Wallace, on a Facebook post. I will let everybody know when the arrangements will be made. Thank you in advance for all the comfort, thoughts, and prayers. So a tremendous football player during his time at Southern. I talked with a lot of Jackson State guys that played against Sean today, all with a tremendous amount of respect for the way he played the game. He was all SWAC Defensive Player of the Year, 2-time Sheridan Black College All-American honors. He also played a season with the Arizona Cardinals. But if you grew up or were in the conference in the 90s, Sean Wallace was one of those stars back in the early 90s. So definitely want to send thoughts and prayers to the Southern football community, Southern University as a whole, and from inside the HBCU Sports Lab to Sean Wallace's family.
Yeah, I appreciate you putting that out there. As we always like to talk about our legends, and when they become ancestors, we certainly need to pause for all the work, whether they are players, coaches, administrators alike. So we'll take a moment of silence in his honor. As we jump back into it, I want to give a little love. As you know, on our Thursdays, traditionally we cover the NCAA Division II and NCAA programs. And we have some accolades out here. You don't always get to hear this, but credit to HBCUGameDay.com. HBCU Conference has the nation's top 3-point shooters in the world of college basketball. One HBCU program is home to the country's top 2 3-point shooters, LeVar Miller Jr. from Kentucky State and Walker Peggs from Spring Hill College. Both of them out of the SIAC, the HBCU's Kentucky State. 2 of the 8 SIA schools are both tied as top 2 shooters from distance in college basketball. With that being said, we'll get in here a little bit. And the 2 players have both knocked down 93 pointers in the first 21 games, which averages out to 4.29 3 points per game. That's per game. Average is the highest of all male players, Division I, Division II, Division III, according to NCAA statistics. The prolific shooting hasn't been necessarily equated to wins for either program in the SIAC, however. But shout out to those guys, particularly LeVar Miller representing the HBCU Kentucky State University. They not only taking threes, but he's making them.
I was about to say, it's one thing to attempt it, but it's another thing to hit them.
With that being said, we have Drew back over there. So, Drew, we're going to go to you and get your HBCU news of the day. We got to share a little bit of love on your SIC. What direction you going?
First off, I just want to make a comment on those 2 players because Morehouse has played both of those teams this year. While we were not able to contain Miller, he kind of lit us up for a good game. We were able to contain Peggs from Spring Hill. You know, he got his, but we was able to contain him. So, and you know, the big thing with a shooter, make them put them on the floor. Don't let them set their feet, because when they set their feet, it's over. Anyway, Charles, I'm gonna save Angel Jackson for you, since that's a Jackson State thing. I just feel obligated to say that for you. So I'm gonna go with it's the official transitioning of season, especially for people who do what I do. That is the indoor track and field championships. I'm gonna go off script for a moment, Dr. Cavill, and remind everybody that the SIAC just completed day 1 of their indoor track and field championships in Louisville, Kentucky, and they will conclude on tomorrow. But getting back on script, the SWAC's indoor track and field championship will be Saturday and Sunday at the Birmingham Crossplex, and all of the events from the track meet can be seen on SWAC Digital Network. And for track heads like me, if you have never been to an indoor track meet,
It's different.
as fun as outdoor track is, it's almost like arena football or something along those lines. Is fun. It's exciting. It's compressed. You can actually see everything that's going on at the same time. You can see them doing the long jump while you got a 800-meter race going on at the track, and not have to really focus your eyes in too many places. So I love indoor track, but you know what indoor track means? It's almost time to get outside and pull the sunscreen out for some good track as you get the sand out your toes in the long jump.
There it is.
Yeah, with it being cold and the cold weather sticking in here to Atlanta, to Houston, with it being Atlanta, I guess that's on my mind, and across the country. I'll be excited about a little bit of sun. So I'm glad you mentioned it. I want something to provide the suntan lotion. In fact, I might be taking me a trip more reason than one. Charles, what other news you want to share?
Yeah, HBCU All-Stars LLC, they announced earlier this week that the inaugural HBCU Women's Basketball All-Star Game and the fourth edition of the men's game will be played Sunday, April 6th at Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio, Texas. Athletes selected for the game will be chosen from a watch list of draft and pro-eligible athletes from the Division I and Division II HBCU scouted throughout the season by the HBCU All-Stars National Scouting Team. So kudos. We got a women's All-Star game on the horizon.
Good stuff. Good stuff when you talk about the ladies getting it done. Drew, any last thing that you want to share before we take our first break?
The Shaws didn't hit it. I'm going to have to hit it for them. Jackson State's very own Angel Jackson has made history by becoming the first HBCU player to join Athletes Unlimited, a professional women's basketball league. The milestone not only highlights her exceptional talent, but also underscores her increasing recognition from HBCUs in professional sports. And this comes from HBCU Game Day. We all know, I really don't need to go down the resume of Angel Jackson. We all know that did she lose a game at Jackson State? I know she didn't lose a SWAC game, if I remember correctly, Charles.
I don't think she lost the SWAC. I want to say it might be in the tournament.
They lost the tournament that first year, but then the second year they went 21-0, if I remember correctly.
Exactly. Which we see how difficult that is now, because Texas Southern was breathing until this last weekend.
Yeah. We also know that she was drafted by the WNBA, but failed to make the cut with the WNBA. So just congratulations to Angel Jackson. You know, we hate on Jackson State, and I say that loosely. We have fun with it, but anytime somebody from our HBCUs, one of our HBCU sisters, makes it to a professional level when it comes to athletics, we want to give her flowers, despite the fact of what she did to us on the court.
Well, you see the eyes of the tiger on you. It's the other tiger, though. But with that being said, I know y'all don't necessarily, a lot of folks have a problem calling Jackson State family or rivalry. It may not be that, but they sure like to go about each other.
Love it. Love it.
That part is without a question.
They done do something.
Hey, can we ever replace Southern on that list, Charles?
It's tough, buddy. You getting there.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
We're going to take our first break, but before we do that, I'd be remiss if I didn't give some of the updates of these scores. With here, Texas Southern, we have UAPB is actually leading 13-10 with 1:40 left in this first quarter. So it's a tough matchup. We'll see what that looks like. Down at Prairie View, Mississippi Valley is up 4-3. This is an important one in terms of who makes the tournament. Mm-hmm. Both these teams have 3 wins. The key thing is Valley won the first game by 17 points. So it's really important to get this victory. If you're Prairie View, both teams want it, but you go down the tiebreakers, you're in trouble when you look at the head-to-head and the point differential. So that's one to keep your eyes on. Down in Montgomery, you have Bethune-Cookman leading Alabama State 11-4. And down up in Huntsville, Alabama, I should say FAMU is up over Alabama A&M. It's early, 10-9 with 3:23 left in the first quarter. while that Alabama State also has 3:20 left. With that, we'll take our first break and come back on the other side.
Planning an event? From weddings to corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC brings over 15 years of experience to make your vision a reality. Based in Metro Atlanta and serving statewide, even internationally, we provide versatile event planning and authentic catering cuisines tailored to your needs. Whether it's pre-game meals for student athletes, fundraisers, weddings, corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC is your one-stop solution for exceptional service and unforgettable food. Our diverse culinary heritage means we cater to all cultural tastes, dietary needs, and food restrictions, making every meal uniquely yours. Let's make your next event unforgettable. Visit us on all social media at CMJ Events LLC or email us at cmjeventsllc@gmail.com. Also give us a call at 404-664-3882 so that we can start planning now.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta CAVIL'S of Dr. CAVIL'S Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. CAVIL'S Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. Brian, AD, Roy, all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
It's Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Charles Bishop and AD Drew. With that being said, let's go to the CIAA. Let's get into some CIAA. We're going to start with the women. Chivalry's not dead in terms of that. That's the first tournament up of all HBCU tournaments. It would happen to be the granddaddy of them all. When you talk about basketball tournaments that started, history-wise, I do want to point this out. SIAC was actually the first conference to have a basketball tournament, while obviously CIAA was founded first. And it has, as everybody recognizes, has one of the best tournaments out there amongst all of them, certainly not just HBCUs. It's in Baltimore, Maryland. There's been some talk that Charlotte may try to get back in the mix. Some people feel good about that. Some people don't. Even from North Carolina, with that being said, which is fascinating to me. But let's get into the action.
Hey, Dr.
We're going to go down to it. Last matchup Saturday is a big one, featuring Virginia Union, Virginia State, and guess what? Division rankings, they both tied at 8-1. Overall, Virginia Union is 13-2 in terms of conference. Virginia State is actually 13-2 in division conference. Check this out. Overall, Virginia Union is 20-5. Guess what Virginia State is? 20-5. So this one, in terms of records, matches up for all the marbles in many levels. Virginia Union got it done earlier, so it'll be fascinating to see can Virginia State get it done in terms of that matchup. Fayetteville State has ran away with the Southern Division. They sit at 9-1 with the remaining game left. Livingston behind them is 6-3. So we have some questions still in terms of the seeding, what that would look like, particularly with the Northern Division. So that's going to be kind of fascinating to see what that looks like. So I'm going to go to you first, Charles. Give me your thoughts in terms on the women's side expectation coming in the CIAA tournament. It's always fascinating what goes on this year in Baltimore.
And it's very tough with these two. I mean, you take a look at where they are offensively in the rankings. Virginia Union second ranked offense, Virginia State third ranked offense. Even from a defensive perspective, Virginia Union is second in the conference and Virginia State is fourth. So they're both in the upper echelon in terms of what they get done, both offensively and defensively. But it's like I'm having difficulty like leaning in which direction. Maybe you just go with the home team or not.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Drew, what direction you going with this matchup?
I'm going to the matchup of good competitive basketball, Dr. Cavill. You know, rival game, anything can happen in a rival game. But when you have a rival game with two teams that are actually playing for all the marbles, you know, that just adds to the fans' excitement for a game like this. Both teams have outstanding players. I mean, how often do you see teams come in with the same division record, conference record, and overall record at this point in time in the season, Dr. Cavill? I can't think of it too often. So I'm looking forward to just sitting back, watching this game. Too bad, unlike football where we match up with each other. Basketball, too bad we won't see the CIAA. So hopefully somebody wins their region. We win. Somebody out the SIC wins our region, and we could have a true HBCU championship on the whole.
That being said, before we switch over to the men in the CIAA, I wanted to give this update. You did have the 11th update in terms of Fayetteville State. They did play Virginia Union. That was back February 10th, my birthday, oddly enough. And
We still got going.
you know I showed they look Fayetteville State. You gotta be excited. Almost lose my train of thought. Fayetteville State did beat Virginia Union in that matchup where they were on the road, Virginia Union, and they won 70-52. When you start talking about tournament matchups deep in the tournament, what may come out of that. You didn't have the Virginia State matchup in terms of the crossover, so that's still a little question mark to be out there. But something to kind of think about in terms of what that may look like as you get deeper in the tournament. Any team that you could see maybe a potential upset?
Well,
kind of early.
Ooh. Claflin, maybe, in terms of giving either school, a potential, difficult matchup. But that was actually the question I was going to ask. Is there a fly in the ointment team sitting out there?
Drew, you have a fly in the ointment on the winner side that you want to say that we may need to consider?
Dr. Cavill, it's so tough. So when I get to these situations, I got to pull out the inner nerd in me. And if I'm looking at a team that could possibly do something, I'm looking at like Bowie State. Defensively, they're right there at that magic number, 60 points per game. They're at 64 and a half points per game. So they're going to play you close. But it's something about that magic number of 60. The teams who consistently play at that level gives them a chance to win a grinded out game. So if I'm going with one team on the women's side that I would keep an eye out on, I'm voting Bowie State.
I like those upsets early with Claflin or Bowie State in terms of what that looks like. Let's flip it to the men where it's a little more contested in terms of what's going on in that side of the house. On the Northern Division, Virginia State, division-wise, 6-3. But it gets crowded just one game back right behind them with Bluefield State at 5-4, Virginia Union at 5-4, and Bowie State at 5-4, which means that matchup between Virginia State and Virginia Union can either really make chaos, as some people would like to say, or they can kind of hold on and solidify. Just to let you know the difference of what they've done in division versus conference overall, where you get a little more space to see maybe how talented the team is in regards to what they can do overall, or maybe it was just a scheduling quirk. Virginia State is at 12-3, Bluefield State is at 9-6, Virginia Union 8-7, and then Bowie State is actually at a losing record in conference play at 7-8. When you talk about overall record, you can see a little difference between that's up there. Virginia State sits at 17-8. Everybody else has double digits in losses with at least 10 or more. When you go to the Southern Division, you have Fayetteville State 9-1, while they're winning on both sides in the basketball business, maybe a little closer on the men's side with Claflin right behind them at 7-2. When you look at the conference race, not much differential there, 12-4, 10-5. And then overall, Fayetteville State is having a solid season at 20-7. I'm going to shout out Claflin because they're still single digits in loss. They're at 16-9. Everybody else has 10 or more losses on that side, starting with Johnson C. Smith when you look at the overall record. With that being said, I'm going to start with you this time, Drew. What are your thoughts in terms of going down this stretch? That Virginia State matchup, Virginia Union, is going to be incredible both on the men's and women's side for that matchup on Saturday, because a lot is on the line in terms of finishing strong in your division and getting that 1 seed representing your division to set you up in the tournament matchup, and getting away with Fayetteville State, men's or women's, it seems like it's also something that is on the line out there early in the tournament. With that being said, what are you seeing as things getting closed up in the CIAA?
And you may hear me re-emphasize this point, insert different school name when I talk about the SIAC, but Fayetteville State running away with their division, is that a recipe for disaster, everybody? Because they've been tested. We know the teams in the Northern Division have been tested based upon their records. Fayetteville State has pretty much had their way in the Southern Division. So come tournament time, especially, I believe the CIAA uses a double bye when they seed their teams. You're going to have teams that are coming into face a Fayetteville State who will probably have played a close game in the tournament. We know what they've done in the regular season. Is that a recipe for a first-round upset when Fayetteville State crosses over against a battle-tested Northern team? Put that one in your on your Rolodex on the wall, Charles, and see if that comes to fruition.
Well, the team that stands out for me is Claflin at 16-9. You talk about battle tested, 7-2 in the division, sitting right behind Fayetteville State. But you talk about playing those teams like are they battle tested enough to kind of make a run in the tournament?
I lost you at the end there, Charles. If you was asking me a question, I heard you say battle tested, then I lost you.
We're going to take our second break. We'll come back on the other side and get into the SIAC talk. We'll start with the women and then go to the men before we do our last segment to talk about the NIA program. That being said, we'll take our second break. We'll come right back as the Ocean of Soul is leading us out of the break and getting it done. We'll be right back after this break.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
When it comes to professional learning, teachers deserve better. From the leader in online learning, Stride brings you the Stride Professional Development Center, an on-demand library of mobile-friendly courses that gives teachers choice and flexibility, allowing them to learn anytime and anywhere. Our dynamic courses provide bite-sized learning and help educators advance their knowledge while also gaining professional development hours. It's time you take charge of your learning. Visit us today to get started.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want to lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're here in the H&P Arena for the Texas Southern hosting UAPB, the Tigers and the Golden Lions. With that being said, go ahead and give us some scoring updates.
Yeah, let's take a look around the SWAC. Florida A&M on top of Alabama A&M. The scores in the second, 18-16. Bethune on top of Alabama State, 28-4. That scores in the second quarter. Yeah, I'll say it again. Bethune on top of Alabama State, 28-4.
Oh my God!
Score in the second quarter play. Mississippi Valley on top of Prairie View, 17-11. And here at HPNE, Texas Southern on top of UAPB, 29-23.
With that being said, I can give you a little bit more in terms of that Bethune-Cookman and Alabama State. They did score the 4 points in the first quarter, while Bethune-Cookman put up 23.
Wow.
In the second quarter, 7:43 left. Alabama State Hornets have yet to score, and they've given up 5 points by Bethune-Cookman.
30-4.
And that game is in Montgomery? That's in Montgomery, y'all?
Yeah,
it's in Montgomery, yeah.
Ooh, I would hate to be going to class if I was them on tomorrow.
Yeah, it ain't nice.
They don't make a run in this game.
Yeah, I would hate any of that. That's not good. That's not good. But let's get over to the SIAC as we promised. Again, we're going to start with the women because we say chivalry's not dead. Shout out. Kudos to Clark Atlanta's women's head coach as they cracked the 20-win mark. They're 20-5, leading the conference at 13-3. Good chance to close down the stretch and get it done on that side. But they do have to look at Allen, that is right behind them in terms of conference record-wise. 2 games back, sitting at 11-5, 16-7 overall. And you look at the last 10 games for these teams. Clark Atlanta has really done well at 9-1, but Allen is playing really good basketball too, as they were 8-2 over that period of time. Everybody else in the East Division is 500 or worse in terms of the last 10 games to kind of let you know how things are going down the stretch. We've told you for a while now that the race in the West is real interesting, with Miles and Tuskegee happen to be rivals. Drew would like a little bit about this in terms of the entertainment value, as he already knows. Miles is leading in terms of the conference 12-4. Tuskegee is a half game back, full game in terms of the loss at 12-5. And then when you look at overall, Miles is at 16-6. Tuskegee's at 15-9. In terms of who's playing the best over the last 10 games, you probably have to give the nod to Tuskegee. They're 9-1. Tuskegee, Miles is just 7-3. Also in the mix is none other than Lane. That sits at 10-6. A couple games back in the loss column, but they've been 7-3 over the last 10 games. So playing some pretty good basketball over that period of time in the conference race. Everybody else is not even 500. They're sub 500 in terms of teams in the division. So we'll kind of let them mix it up, and they'll have to tell us what they want to do in the conference tournament early, and we'll see how that plays off. But the teams to talk about are these teams at the top of the conference. And I'm going to start with you, SIAC women, whether you're talking about the East or the West. Where direction are you going to go?
Obviously, Clark, 9-1 over the last 10. Tuskegee, 9-1 over the last 10. But I am intrigued. What's up with these Lane Dragons that are playing great ball, 15-8 overall, but 7-3 over their last 10 games.
You know, the unfortunate thing, Charles, is because since Morehouse only has men's basketball, I have not seen a lot of these women teams play. I have caught a couple of games over at Clark Atlanta, but Lane is one of those teams that I have not happened to catch. But let's just think about it logically, man. Lane, if they've gotten hot and started recruiting out the Memphis, Nashville, St. Louis area and getting some of those athletes into Jackson, Tennessee, I mean, Jackson, Tennessee is not too far from Jackson, Mississippi, and I know y'all got some ball players down there in Mississippi too. Maybe they found the right formula to get some athletes in there, but I mean, this Lane team looks like they're going to be doing something. But what's going to be interesting, everybody, is with the new format of the tournament, with the first round staying within the division, East playing East, West playing West in the first round before they make it to Atlanta. You know, can an Albany State upset at Allen? Can a Spring Hill upset a Lane? We already know Central State, Kentucky State. That's a manufactured rival right there. When you look on the west side, and Benedict is a team that I wouldn't sleep on. Although it's just something about Savannah State. You know, they've got a good set of guards down there. Savannah State's women's team. So you know, anything can happen. Anything can happen. We've got one last weekend of HBCU ball. Regular season ends Wednesday, and then we'll see when the apples fall off the tree next Saturday, and see who actually makes it into Forbes Arena.
That being said, before we switch to the men on the SIAC, well, I'm gonna let you talk about women. I'm sorry. You have some thoughts on that?
No. I was curious about Lane.
I did. What stumbled me a little bit, I got excited to hear because I have an update with 6 minutes left. Alabama State has scored in the second quarter. It was Cordasia Harris with the made layup, and it was assisted by Alana Pula. We know that last name Pula out of the Conference office, so I thought I'd put that out there. And so we have a score of 32-7 for whatever's the worst. I'm not sure. Comeback.
How much time is left in that half?
4:40 now is left in the half.
So we on double digit watch right now. When they get to double digits, not a half.
You're correct. You're correct. Can they get in there and what that looks like? So let's get to
that'll be halftime here.
Yep, men's side, and we'll give you an update here. So let's get this in here quick. Clark Atlanta sitting at 14-4, Albany State at 13-5, Edward Waters at 12-6, Morehouse that is 11-7. And these teams play each other going down the stretch for 3 games. So this is going to be a fascinating finish in the East. In terms of the West, you have Miles that's really rolling away with it with 16-1. I'm going to leave it right there to make sure we get it in. They're 10-0 in their last 10. Wow. You're talking about Clark Atlanta, Albany at 7-3 in their last 10. Edward Waters, Morehouse, and Fort Valley are 6-4 in their last 10. What are your thoughts in terms of the SIAC men, Drew?
Well, I will clearly say this: those top 4 teams that you mentioned in the East, everybody has beaten everybody. There is no dominant team in that top 4 as far as what they do on the court.
And even
those top 4
over Miles in terms of the East or the West. So great points.
Morehouse is the only team that has beaten Miles. But when you go in, and this is the same thing I said about that CIAA South. Yeah, the teams in the East are battle tested against each other. You know, Miles has, for lack of a better word, been on cruise control for a lot of the season. So it's going to be interesting when these teams cross over. It would not surprise you when the SIAC tournament shakes out after day 1 that 3, possibly all 4 teams in the semifinals could come from the East, because any one of those 4 teams, even though we've beaten Miles, but any one of those 4 teams can beat Miles, whoever winds up in their 4 slot on their crossover match when they match up against number 1 Miles. So, but let's give a shout out to Coach Fred Watson. I mean, ever since he's gotten to Miles, all he knows is championships. He has been Miles 5 years, 5 regular season West titles at Miles. And I believe that's 6 in a row for him because he won his last year at Benedict. So all the brother know how to do is win.
Yeah, the only thing left for Fred is to see if he can kind of make a deep run in the tournament. Yeah, that final chip on that. But that being said, what are your thoughts in terms of the SIAC?
I mean, I think that's a great point. I mean, you're talking about the battle testedness of the teams in the East. Is it a liability with Miles running away with things in the West, playing great basketball? But that's a very interesting thing to kind of take a look at, whether the teams in the East have beat each other up enough to where you get in the tournament play, hey, they're ready to go at a team that really hasn't been challenged over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, Charles. When it comes to in this conference, it comes down to matchups, you know. And I'll take our Morehouse team. Morehouse matches up well with certain teams, and certain teams we do not match up well with. You can look at those 4 teams. All 4 teams have their strength where they match up with another team very well, and then there's that weakness where this one team, despite what their record says, just matches up well against the other team and can exploit the weakness of that other team. I'm not going to go into details because I know what our weakness is and I know what some of these other teams' weaknesses is, but I'm not going to go into that. That's for all the film nerds to figure out. And I also know what Miles' weakness is. So that's what's going to make this fun. But I will tell you this. There's those top 4 teams in the East, despite what Miles' record says, none of those teams are scared of those Golden Bears.
Good stuff. With that being said, as we are at halftime here, Charles, go ahead and give us the updates, and we'll take our last break and come back on the other side and talk a little bit about the NAIA.
Sure, we'll start off right here. First game to go to halftime. Texas Southern on top of Arkansas Pine Bluff, 34-28. Mississippi Valley on top of Prairie View, 22-20. That's with 30 seconds left to go before half. Bethune stretched out that lead, 37-7 over Alabama State. And FAMU and Alabama A&M. FAMU on top of Alabama A&M, 27-25. About a minute 17 before halftime.
What's left in the Alabama State? When will that pain stop?
They got a whole minute and 38 to kind of weather the storm.
When we come back for the break, we'll know if we got the double digit.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what we're going to check. We'll take our last break. We'll come back on the other side.
37-8.
Somebody have to watch his own. Can they get to double digits for that? We'll take our last break and come back on the other side and talk about some of the NIA races, which will be intriguing for many of you all to see as they get prepared for their tournament. Stick with me right back after this last break.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
There's a shot. It might be. It could be. Right field. Grand slam. What a shot. That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do. All you guys at BCSN, we really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food? Like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m.
Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
Oh, we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant. Authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door. Tell your mama hungry.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Bill inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Give him a shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Mama, Wendy, Trevino. I see y'all watching. Hello.
Hi, Mom.
Yes, it did.
Hi, Mom.
With that being said, let's get into some of these records over here. Let's start with the women's and the regular conference.
We forgot about
you had an update you want to
get there?
We did. 38-16 at halftime.
Yeah, well, that's why we wasn't satisfied.
A nice 8-0 run in the half.
8-0 run in the half. You're right.
That's right. It's still a 22-point game. With that being said, get into the Red River Athletic Conference. Teams were battling out on the way. Sitting in the conference race, Shreveport is leading at 22-1. Xavier's right behind them at 22-2. Overall, 23 and 3, 26-2. Both of these teams obviously will be making the NIA tournament. Fascinating when you talk about the game going down the stretch in terms of what that looks like. If somehow Shreveport loses that last game before you get into the tournament and ties up, Xavier would have the number 1 seed because they have the point differential. They defeated LSU Shreveport by 3. Shreveport got the other victory by 2, so 1 point differential. So Xavier not only want to go out as they have played all their games, they had the 1 point victory against non-conference rival Dillard in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But LSU Shreveport still has a game to be played against their rival, LSU Alexandria. So there's a tight there. They're sitting at 18-5.
Yeah.
So it could be a matchup.
How weird was the Xavier loss to Paul Quinn this past week?
Oh, that was weird.
Yeah.
That was out of order.
Everybody must have had the flu or something.
So, yeah, it's probably just looking past them to your point. But that's on the women's side. So you want to get into that conversation in terms of just how bad and tough that loss is?
Yeah, I mean, it's a head scratcher because, probably up until that game, probably one of the hotter teams in HBCU basketball as a whole in terms of what Xavier's been doing. And I had to kind of do a double take looking at this score because I didn't believe it at first. So, okay.
It shocked me because going down the stretch, I just knew it was closed out. I said, well, they're going to at least get a share of this. And they have no one see with point break. And then that popped off, and I was like, oh, no.
Wow.
Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of this?
Fellas, I think we sometimes forget we're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old student athletes. And you can't tell these people not to read their press clippings or their Instagram posts or anything else because they are. And it's hard to go undefeated, and everybody gets caught up at some point in time during the season. Like I say, it could have been something. A number of your key players could have been sick that day. You hear out a player because of a tweaked ankle or a hamstring, something along those lines. So it happens, but we all know what the big prize is. I'd rather give up a regular season title in order to win the conference tournament. So
that's a great point and way to stick it there. Let's go to the men's side. It's a little more differential there. Xavier is still in the mix in terms of getting that number 2 seed in the tournament, but they're fighting off Texas A&M, Texarkana. Make sure they hold that. LSU Alexandria basically has it locked up 22-1 in terms of the games remaining, in terms of seed. Xavier still has a shot, depending on what the rest of the country is doing, but they have a decent run in the tournament. They should get into the NIA tournament. We'll have to kind of wait and see what it is. They get to the magical 20-win mark. It's interesting to see what goes on there. But that's a little bit as you get into the tournament late next week. It'll be interesting to see on both the men's and women's side just how far Xavier can go. Can some of the other HBCUs programs in the Red River Athletic Conference, can they surprise? Can they get some upsets and go on the run? At the bottom of the conference, you have Jarvis Christian, Houston Tillerson, Texas College. Shout out to Paul Quinn. Yeah. They got that big victory on the men's side. They sit at 5-17 on the men's side. Remember, they had that magical run in terms of doing the independent tournament a couple years ago, but they've kind of backed off of that, obviously, and struggling a little bit now. But fascinating to see what are your thoughts in terms of the Red River Athletic Conference on the men's side, particularly Xavier in terms of what they might be able to do in the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, that's remains to be seen. Let's just sit back and see if Xavier can make a run once they get into the tournament. And gosh, you know, once you get in those tournament formats, it's all about rebounding some more. So it'll be very interesting to see what Xavier can do.
Drew, what are your thoughts?
Look, I put my money on Coach Alfred Williams over there at Xavier before I put my money on any of those other coaches in that conference. I've seen what this brother can do. I've seen him do it in 2 conferences. So if you ask me Xavier or the field, I'm taking Xavier.
Okay. Good stuff, good stuff. When we look at HBCU Athletic Conference, since we talked about Dillard, and they had that tough loss to Xavier, the rival, in terms of the women on the HBCU Athletic Conference, Dillard is up there, right? One of the reasons that game was a great contest. They went on the road and had that 1 point loss. They're 18-7 overall, 15-2. So they have a great shot in terms of the bid to the NIA tournament on the women's side. Tougaloo is behind them, sitting at 13-11, 10-6. Everybody else is quite a bit behind. That's the west side of things. On the east side of things, you have Stillman, which will be hosting the tournament. 23-4 overall, for certain a lock for the NIA tournament. They sit at 16-1, so they're getting it done. At home, you got to favor them on the women's side to get it done.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just sitting here looking for the Rush College Bearcats. Where were they?
They're sitting at 11-15, 9-9 overall, kind of slide down. Obviously, remember they lost their coach. Yeah. Coach is over there on the women's side.
Now, I want
to part of the SIAC. That's a little bit.
Yeah, I want a happy home. So, yeah, come on, Russ, let's go.
Drew, what are your thoughts as Charles is cheering on to make sure the home is happy, particularly that they watched it? He made sure he gave a lot of love to the Russ Bearcats. Smart man, which makes sure that means that we will be able to get out to celebrate my birthday.
Yeah, exactly.
Drew, what are you?
Yeah, we don't want Charles to come home with a blanket and a pillow on the couch. So good job, my brother. Good job. I just love the job Coach Aliko Dunk is doing over there at Stillman on the women's side. We had seen them a couple of times this year, and I mean, they've got a good team. They've got a team that can pretty much beat you any style. They can run up and down the court with you. They can slow it down, take the air out the ball, and beat you. So you're gonna give me the number 1 seeded team on their home court for the conference tournament. Give me the Tigers for Stillman.
Good stuff. With that, go to the men's side. Stillman is doing it on both sides. It's fascinating. Again, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, where you had those programs that are just having solid basketball teams, both men's and women's, which makes it really exciting when you have those double-double matchups where you still see regularly at the NCAA Division II level and NIA level. When you have both of your teams with some expectation, you have crowds and fans on both sides. So Stillman sitting at 16-10 overall, 13-4. They have a 2-game lead over Talladega, essentially in the loss column, that sits at 12-6. Everybody else is a little down in terms of that. Just for proper perspective, Russ is struggling a bit. 5-13, 8-6. I wouldn't have brought it up, but I wanted to make sure you could say that we didn't ignore it. But with that being said, when you look at the West, you go to Mississippi. Another school in Mississippi is Tougaloo. We talking about that Russ Tougaloo matchup. I bet you it's some excitement when they get together in terms of conference play. But Tougaloo is hanging on there, 19-7 overall, just 13-3. But right behind them is Dillon. Talking about the Dillons, what they're doing, 13-4 in terms of sitting in the mix, trying to figure out can they make a run, close things out as you start to head towards that tournament, which will be in Tuscaloosa, home of the Stillman that just joined the conference and brought the community to support HBCU AC. So a great thing there. That being said, your thoughts in terms of the men's side of the HBCU AC before we go to Drew?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Coach Eric Struggles in terms of what he's gotten done since he's come to Tougaloo. 19-7, teeter-tottering on another 20-win season, but tremendous teacher of the game in terms of what Coach Struggles was doing. Longtime assistant coach at Jackson State, came over to Tougaloo, and that program has continued to keep thriving over there.
No doubt. Drew?
I'm trying to do some thinking here. Before I even talk about the team, and I know Dr. Barnes over there is a pretty smart woman. She wouldn't have a terminal degree if she did. But since when has the Virgin Islands been in the West? You know, I'm just thinking about how geography. Why is UVI in the West and not Rust in the West or UVI in the East?
You say you got to move one.
if I got to move one, I'm moving Rust to the West and UVI to the East. Anyway, getting back to the Coach Beasley over there at Stillman. Once again, you got the number 1 seeded team on their home court for the tournament. So, you know, I've got to lean towards Stillman, but with everything Talladega's gone through for the last year, and then especially you know last month or so with them cutting programs, would it be a feel good story if Talladega was to come out this tournament and actually win this tournament with everything that they have going on financially at that institution?
Oh yeah, great point. With that, as we start to close it out, and we'll give a little update on the SWAC matchups and your thoughts before we do that. But the independents, if you would, HBCUs, Florida Memorial, we want to make sure we show them some love. They sit at 20-4 overall, 13-3 in terms of the conference race. That's out of the Sun Conference, and they're leading the Sun Conference as they have a half a game lead, 13-3, with Southeastern behind them at 12-3. All those obviously has clinched in terms of the tournament. Actually, Florida Memorial has clinched at least a share of the regular season title and the number 1 seed going into the Sun Conference, which is certainly something to keep your eyes on in terms of what that looks like. So fascinating to see how that stuff goes. When we look at it, the other team I want to show love, since we're talking about the women, is Langston out of the Sooner Athletic Conference. They sit at 20-2 in conference play, 24-2 as they have clinched a conference tournament berth, clinched a regular season looking for the championship. They got to do something. Waylon Bass is right there sneaking behind them at 20-3, so it'll go down the stretch. They finished the season with Texas Wesleyan in science that are at 14-8, 13-9. They have them at home is the good thing, and their team's kind of in the middle of the pack. So if they can find a way to get those victories, they hold on to their regular season championship. Both of these teams are in the tournament in terms of Florida Memorial and Langston NIA overall. So we want to get your thoughts on the women's, just general, in terms of, do you think they can make a run in the NIA tournament?
Absolutely.
And same question for you, Drew.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 24-2 overall on the season, 22 in conference play. A tremendous season thus far for Langston. I fully expect him to make a good run.
Drew?
Yeah, 2 conferences where both these teams have been battle tested and will continue to be battle tested. Florida Memorial in that Sun Conference is traditionally one of those top conferences in NAIA when you talk about conferences east of the Mississippi. Now, when you get to west of the Mississippi, such as the Sooner Athletic Conference, where they're kind of down there behind those conferences that geographically will be equated to what we know as the Big Sky Conference or those California conferences. So they're good, they're battle tested, but I think slight advantage to Florida Memorial over Langston, despite what the records say.
Probably the surprise is Langston. Just what they were doing last time. Just let you know how talented team was last year. And when you have those teams, you special how you really want to cut down the nets when you have the chance. But this is also a team, as we've seen before, maybe they can get hot in the tournament because they've been battle tested so long. But they sit in fourth place, essentially tied for fourth place on the men's side of the Sooner Athletic. You have Nelson at the top at 17-5, 19-7 overall. Langston is sitting 15-7, so just 2 games back. Game left in terms of tournament play to see how that goes out, as they have tested Westland as well in terms of their way to try to close things down. As they have their final run, they still should be in a mix for NIA tournament, but they probably need to do some work in the tournament, Sooner Athletic tournament, to kind of make sure they get that matchup.
Yeah.
A couple of wins to do it, put them over the 20-win mark. We'll see what it looks like as we get prepared for that. And then you talk about on the men's side for Florida Memorial. They're at 12-4, 2 games back in the loss column behind Kaiser that is winning the tournament, winning there. They clinched at least a share of the regular season title. So you won't see that happening there. But Florida Memorial has clinched a spot in the Sun Conference tournament, much like Langston. What are your thoughts on the men's side in terms of the surprise of Langston? And to some degree, Florida Memorial, they have been doing it on the men's side as well. Obviously, the women's are solid, but men are a little different when you talk about Langston, Florida Memorial.
I think, like you said, when you get the opportunity, you better make sure you cut the nets down. And it's such a hard road, going back up the mountain again, trying to get back to the pinnacle. But kudos to Langston in terms of fighting through, trying to get back to that 20-win mark. And as you mentioned, Florida Memorial, right there in the thick of things, right there at 12-4 in the Sun.
Drew, what are your thoughts in terms of Langston and Florida Memorial on the men's side as they start to close out the season?
I want to go back, take a slight step back. You notice the dominance on the women's side with Langston. If I remember correctly, Coach Wright's former assistant is now the women's coach at Langston. So maybe some of that magic that we saw last year on the men's side was actually, the assistant coach took some of that magic with him and created it on the women's side. And we see that when coaching staff turn over, that coach who was the offensive guru or the defensive guru, when they leave the staff, there's a slight letdown that year following, and that might be what we're seeing over at Langston, because I can't call his name right now, but I know the guy who was his assistant, went over to the women's side, has been on Wright staff both at Talladega and at Langston. So there's obviously that synergy there, and it's kind of. It's refreshing to see two, especially NAI schools who play football and play a decent brand of football, also know how to spend their coins right and support their basketball programs, because usually you don't see teams that, especially at the NAIA level, that heavily invest in football, have decent football teams, also have good basketball teams. So that shows an overall commitment from the athletic department to support their student athletes.
We'll close it out here, going back to Division I, some big games. When we look at our top 5 programs, men's and women's, you see how those races are. We'll give you some final scores as we go out in terms of what is going on with these Thursday SWAC games. But I wanted to talk about the bigger picture overall. You have North Carolina A&T as they're trying to close out on a Coastal Conference Championship. They have William and Mary. They're on the road this weekend, which is a fast day, and that's tomorrow. And then Sunday, they host Delaware State. So those teams should be interesting when you talk about what that looks like in some of those matchups. When you talk about those teams, William and Mary is in the middle of the conference, if you would. along with Delaware State in terms of conference record. William Mary is 7-5, while Delaware is 6-7. So give you some thoughts there. Tennessee State women, credit for them. They've been playing pretty well of late. Obviously, they're buried in the middle of it, but they got a chance if they can close out strong, that they at least will be able to get one of those final bids in the tournament. So that's something in terms of you building with a first-year coach, something that you look at when you talk about the OVC race in terms of what's going on there. Give you a score in terms of those games today, as you don't have Tennessee State playing their normal Thursday matchup, but they do have one on Saturday, and they got to go to Tennessee Tech. That's something that you want to keep in mind in terms of what they might be doing there in terms of their matchup. And then you have these SWAC matchups going on. BX, you want to make sure you keep that all strong in terms of Howard and Morgan State, South Carolina State and Delaware State, Norfolk State and Coppin State, North Carolina Central, and Maryland Eastern Shore. You see the games, obviously, the SWAC today. On Saturday for the women, it's going to be fascinating. You have those double headers, but the Saturday matchups, FAMU with Alabama State, Alcorn State and Jackson State, the rival, Southern and Grambling, Pine Bluff and Prairie, Norfolk with that Alabama A&M, Mississippi Valley and Texas Southern. As you go down the stretch in all these Division I conferences, you want to get a regular season championship if you win. You have Southern over there doing it on the men's side. On the women's side, it's 3 teams, Southern, Jackson State, and Texas Southern. So these races are going to be interesting if it's for a regular season championship or for seeding in the tournament, when it really counts in terms of putting down the tickets to go dance. What are your thoughts in terms of close things out? I'm going to go to you first, Drew, and then you to close it out, Charles. Go ahead.
I caught most of that, Dr. Cavill. Obviously, with the Ocean of Soul in the background, it gets a little difficult for us on the listening end. But you know I'm gonna make a pivot, Dr. Cavill. You talked about all those games, all those matchups on the Division I level. Doc, there's only one game that's going on this weekend that anybody needs to pay attention to, and that's the Big Cat Hardwood Classic at Forbes Arena in Atlanta, Georgia, with the tip-off at 4 p.m.
You better be glad I got home games here in Houston. We got to find a way to make sure these folks look at the schedule. So when TSU or Prairie View have home games, Morehouse is not. I would fly down there because I'd make sure I knew you would take care of me.
Of course. Yeah, we expected anywhere from 6,000 to 7,000 people inside Forbes Arena. It's a typical fire marshal game, as we like to call them.
Well, that's all right. You can take care of us when we come for SWAC tournament.
Yeah, but it won't be at Forbes. I won't have the keys to everything over there at the gate. But yeah, no, seriously though, that is not only an important battle in the SIAC for standings, but just the pure pageantry of that rivalry. So 2 weeks in a row, then Morehouse is facing one of his top rivals. So I'm sorry, Dr. Cavill, had to go off script because I knew it was going to be my last task to get it in.
They pay you really well over there. You need to keep doing that to make sure that you put the lights on. And this is the Thursday Division II show, so you did it right. Charles.
No, I think games looking forward to North Carolina A&T for the opportunity to win the CAA. That's huge for their program over there in that conference. And then games that I'm paying attention to this weekend, obviously Jackson State and Alcorn, Destiny Brown in the lineup. Which Alcorn team do we get against Jackson State? Jackson State has been playing really good basketball and just staying in the thick of things. At Southern and Grambling, that's another one, huge rivalry weekend in terms of what can Grambling do. They've been on the uptick now over the past couple of games. See if what might happen because that game is in Grambling this weekend.
Give us the final score before we check it out.
Is the Jackson State Alcorn basketball rivalry as intense as the football rivalry?
As intense as the football game?
Is the rivalry for basketball is as intense as it is for football?
Yeah, it's Jackson State Alcorn. It's gonna be heated.
I would say in some ways it might be a little tougher because naturally in basketball you're on each other right there, right? You're in that condensed environment.
And Neely is right there on the floor ragging all corn players. So it has some extra to it.
Give us the final scores so we can get out of here.
Yeah, let's take a look at some final scores before we get out of here. Purview on top of Mississippi Valley. That game is now in the third quarter, 28-25. Bethune on top of Alabama State, 41-20. As that game is the third quarter. FAMU, Alabama A&M on top of FAMU, 39-36 in the third quarter. And here, Texas Southern on top of UAPB, 49-38, 2:29 left to go in the third.
They stretched it out a little bit. As we told you earlier, that Mississippi Valley Prairie View game is big in terms of likely who's going to get that 10th seed, that final seed in the tournament. We will see and keep you updated as we do next Tuesday as we come back and see what the rankings are in terms of those things. With that being said, thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, A.D. Drew. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. We bid you adieu from H&P Arena. Worked out well. We'll see about next year if the SWAC continues with the Thursday. Charles Evans says he's trying to throw it in the trash. But I'm like, man, it just started. How you going to measure stuff after 1 year? With that being said, we'll see. We look forward to next week, and we'll discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta. That's DrKenyatta CAVIL. That's Facebook and Instagram. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab on Facebook and YouTube. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We'll talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Drew?
Saturday, 3 o'clock, Maroon Tiger Sports Network. Lecture.
Dismissed.